had hoped to get to the floor, do some more work on that, but everything else took so long I ran out of time again. And I have painted the brackets. Those ramps actually make quite a good hanging rack. I just clamped it to my shelves, and that box is pretty heavy, so it holds the other end down. These aren't very heavy, of course. So those are all the brackets cleaned up and painted, and I have stained the firewall just one side because the other side is going to be covered in aluminium. So should only need to do the back of it. So the next thing to do will be, I think I can look at treating the body now. Pretty sure that's all the holes that need to be drilled in it. Any others, of course, I can still drill them after I've treated and painted the timber. So maybe that'll be the next thing. Once the firewall is dry, I'll get the front of the frame up there and start treating that. I think I might need to get more of the stain I'm using. I think I've used about half a tin so far, so there's probably about another tin in it. The ash takes quite a bit. I don't know if it's because the preservative seals it a little bit, so it's harder for it to soak in, or if it's just because it's a hard wood, so it doesn't take the stain very well. I'm not really sure. I will give it a light sand before I put the preservative on it, just to make sure there's no oil or grease from greasy hands on the timber. That'll stop it soaking in the preservative. But yeah, I think that wasn't too bad for a weekend's worth of work. So Riley at the moment, the firewall has been stained both sides. That was a good suggestion in the comments, thank you for that. Doesn't really cost me much to coat the whole piece of timber, but that stops one side warping differently to the other, I guess. This plywood I'm using is treated anyway, so I imagine it's fine. The black was just more for appearance, but like I say, it didn't hurt to do that. I'm still going to need to fit the door locks, or the handles lock mechanisms, but I need to reassemble everything before I can do that. So I need to get it all back together. I've just noticed I've dinged the corner of my door there. And while the body is off, I still want to do these floor pieces and the vertical bit of the firewall, or the first half of that. What else have we got? The instrument panel, there's no reason I can't start making holes in that, because I'm pretty much sure I know where the gauges are going. But I want to wait, because there is actually a big swap meet about an hour and a half away from here next Saturday, which I'm going to drive up to. And this is a big vintage car swap meet. So I want to go along and have a look at that and see what else I can find. Maybe I can find different gauges or switches, or who knows. But I just know if I start making holes in this panel, I'll need to change something. So I'll go and do that trip first and see what I can pick up, and then have a look at it. I can always make more panels. The panel's not very difficult to make. Floors, as I keep saying, I still need to get onto those. And I've been timber treating the front half of the body, this Metal-X stuff. Just give it a nice green coat, and then I will go back over with that black stain, and hopefully that comes out okay. It's actually a bit tricky staining it. It comes out all right. It still looks a little bit green, actually. You can sort of just see the green. It takes about 3 coats of the stain to really make it go black. So that's what I'll do, and then of course I have to do the whole rear end of the car as well. I'm going to need to get more of the stain because I'm running out of that. But yeah, that's the Riley at the moment. Working on the Riley again. I've been staining the frame, or the front half of the frame. That's over there. I went out today, actually went to a swap meet about an hour and a quarter away, up in Fielding, and I was hoping to get some stuff there. I didn't find much, but I did find a couple of things. But on the way back I picked up more stain. The frame, it takes at least 3 coats, because I'm going over the top of the wood protectant stuff to get it to soak in. You can see there's just 1 coat there. It looks really messy at the moment. Once it actually dries off, it's not quite so bad. And by the time you've got 3 or 4 coats on there, this will be probably 2 coats here, it actually looks quite good. So I'm going to keep going with that. The firewall is stained both sides. I need to cover that in aluminium, and this afternoon I've been working on putting in the floor and the firewall pieces. This is a real pain in the neck, because the way it all fits together, there's a sequence. You have to remove these panels. You have to take off that one first, then that one, then this one, to be able to get to everything. And in order to get all of the holes to line up nicely, I had to do one piece at a time, line it all up, drill the holes in one piece, mark them through into my sort of cross member there, take it all apart again, drill the holes, put it all back together. So this has been taken apart and put back together multiple times now. But I have these actually bolted down. I've tried sitting in the car. It's much better with all those actually fitted in place. And I have the start of the firewall in place. I'm going to make the little angle brackets that go on there, and then there will be pieces that go in here up to about this level, to make that vertical front piece of the firewall. That will all be attached to the chassis. So the way this will work, if I've got it right, is once those are in place, finally they can stay in place. The body will come on and off separately, including the shelf and the front piece of the firewall. That's the idea anyway. Still need to do the under tray, of course, underneath there. I'm not sure how many pieces I will do that in. I think maybe a front piece to here, and then a midsection, and then the rear section. It'll be something like that. The floor on this side will be flat, giving me that little bit of storage, because there isn't a lot on this car. And yeah, it's just slow and painful work, just because you do have to keep putting everything together and taking it apart. But I'll get there slowly. I did paint the steel bracketry, so once the frame is stained and dry, I can actually start screwing that in place into the final places. The doors, I still need to look at those. I need to put the strip on the bottom of the door, the sort of metal strip, which is what the bottom edge wraps around. Same on the rear. Instrument panel, I haven't done anything. I'm not sure I'm going to put the clock in here, because the clock's actually quite big and chunky, so I may leave that out and see if I can either get a smaller clock or I don't know, a stopwatch or something else. I don't need to put the hole in it straight away. The little swap meet wasn't as good as the last one I went to. So this one was at Manfield, which is a racetrack. As I said, about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and a quarter away from here. And I got a couple of things. So I got another 12 volt regulator for $3. So this is really cheap. This one looks in really nice condition, actually. So these are always handy to have. I've got 6 volt ones and 12 volt ones. But once I get around to actually figuring out the electrical system in this car, I may use one of these. Even though it's slightly out of period, it will work. The other thing I got was this adjustable spade bit. I've never never seen one of these before. So it's got sort of an adjustable cutter there. Looks like someone sharpened it a few times. I did try it very quickly, and it is blunt, so it needs a bit of sharpening. But that was, I think this was $3 because I paid with a $5 note for this. I had $2 in my pocket, and that's what he charged me for that. So that's quite neat. And the other thing I got, I also got something for the garden, just a big porcelain insulator off a electrical pylon. We'll use that as a garden ornament. But I got this as well, which is a sort of swage jenny thing. It's missing the wheels, and it did turn when I first got it, but I've realised that the bolt, whatever that joins this gear or pin to that shaft, is actually missing. So it doesn't work now, but it did work when I first picked it up. What is this? PS&W, no idea what the brand is, if it's American or British. But I think this piece has been added on later by someone, I would say. And interestingly, this is pretty well shaped for some number 8 fencing wire, so maybe they were using it for wire forming, but I think this should clean up quite nicely, and I can make dies for it, I'm hoping. So it would be actually quite useful to be able to use this. This, I think, is an adjustable stop, so you can adjust it in and out. That seems to be a lock nut thing for it. Yeah, I'll soak it in degreaser and get it all cleaned up and see what I can do with it, I guess. I have got the other bead roller, of course, but something like this is way more rigid because it's so much smaller. These sort of bead rollers, these are these cheap Chinese ones, even though this is 1/4-inch steel plate, when you actually go to use it, you realize how flexible that is and how much flex there is. So I ended up welding steel 1-inch square steel tubing to the back of it to reinforce it, and it still flexes a little bit, but I find if it's at the point that it's flexing, I'm probably overdoing whatever it is I'm doing. But this would be quite nice to make a little, maybe tipping dies or something like that. I often do that when I'm trying to fold up a flange. I run it through some homemade dies on my bead roller just to put a little crease in the metal, because then when I tip the flange up, it'll bend exactly on that crease. I found that works really well. But yeah, it was worth picking up, and that was kind of all I got from there. So I probably spent more on petrol going up there and back than I spent at the place. So I'll just keep plodding along with this floor and the front of the frame. Once the front of the frame is all nicely stained up, I need to do the same at the back. I think I do still need to look at how I'm going to attach it's called a boot lid, but there isn't really much boot there, but the cover that goes over here, I've got the budget locks with the big T-shaped key to lock it into this, and I don't think I really need to modify this much more. Probably what I'll do is I'll just screw a little steel plate underneath here for the latch to catch under. I think that's all I really need there. Other than that, I think the tail is complete with all the right brackets and bits and pieces. So that'll be the next job, is getting that all treated and stained.
They've only just seen us, and you can see them thinking like, oh.
Well, I think think now the fire engines and things are there, they'll figure it out.
I was waving at them.
This is the aftermath of last night's excitement, where the tree had come down. There's more tree there, and they're still here fixing all the power. But that tree fell right across the road, took out this power line, which was like the 11 kV high voltage at the top. That fell onto the low voltage line, which blew all of our fuse boxes and things. So we're still not sure what the damage is. And then there was a bit of a fire along here and a bit further along. So apparently it's going to take all day to fix. I thought I was going to be filming this video in the dark, but they finally got the power back on today around lunchtime. They had to fix the high voltage line, then fix the low voltage lines underneath that, and then check all the houses affected to make sure that there was no damage in any of our electrical wiring side of things. So they came and checked ours, and we've turned things on. A few things have been fried. So our range hood, little stereo I've got in my lab, that seems broken now. The worst thing is the water pump and the UV sterilizer. Those both seem to be dead. So I'm going to have to sort those out tomorrow. But at least I've got lights again and everything in here is working. So I've done yet another coat of the black stain on the front of the frame. It's still a bit wet. So I'll leave that to dry, and I think it'll need one more coat, and that should be a nice protective coating on that. Hopefully that's the last time I ever have to do that. But yeah, it takes quite a few coats to get it to really soak in. And it's bike stuff. I might, now that the power's back on, cut an aluminium blank for the firewall, and I may see what of the crappy plywood I've got to make a like a clamping board. So I'll cut the aluminium out to fit the firewall, and then I can actually bolt it down, because I've got holes in it, and bolt it down with another piece of wood, and then I can use the thing itself kind of as a hammer form. I can hammer the edges around. I'll anneal all the edges before I hammer them round, but it shouldn't be too hard on that. There aren't too many sharp corners, so I may do that. I also have stripped down and cleaned up, or started cleaning up, this Jenny that I got. So it's just sitting in degreaser at the moment. The whole thing came apart pretty easily. It was missing a pin on one of the gears. I still need to figure out exactly what these threads are, but it should clean up nicely, and hopefully I can fix it up and replace any of the bits that are missing and have a usable tool from it. It's a bit hard getting motivated today because of all these power problems, and just sort of threw off my whole weekend. But the floor panels are in now, so I think either cut the aluminium and start doing the aluminium on the firewall, or else maybe the aluminium for the vertical piece, that it stays attached to the car.